CreepyCorner stories.
Hey everyone, welcome back to CreepyCorner stories. You know, diving into the dark web is always risky, but sharing these stories with you makes it worth it. I'm curious, where are you watching this from right now? Let me know in the comments below. I've noticed that these kinds of stories hit differently depending on where you are. It might even make the experience a little creepier. So, tell me, are you watching from the safety of your home or somewhere less secure? I found a dark web list of people who were replaced. My boss's name was on it, and now he's acting different. Alright, so before I get into this, let me just say, I should not have gone on the dark web. Yeah, I know, classic dumbass mistake. Oh, you went on some sketchy site. Now you're haunted. Trust me, I thought that stuff was just clickbait horror stories. But this was real, and I might be next. It started a couple of weeks ago. I work a pretty standard office job, one of those sit at a desk, answer emails, pretend to care types of deals. It's at this mid-sized tech company in Chicago. Nothing crazy. My boss, Brian, was the kind of guy you'd forget was even in the room. He wasn't mean or anything, just weirdly neutral. No social media, no photos in his office, no real personality. He was just there. Anyway, one night after work, my buddy Jake and I were hanging out at his place. We were a couple of beers in, scrolling through Reddit, when we got on the topic of the dark web. You know, the usual. Bro, I heard there are live streams of assassinations, type of talk. I told him I thought it was mostly an urban legend, just exaggerated stories to freak people out. But Jake, he was the type to actually check. You ever been on it? He asked, pulling out his laptop. I hadn't. I'd always been too paranoid about getting doxxed or tracked by the FBI or whatever. But after a few drinks, I was feeling a little reckless. So we downloaded Tor, got onto some forums. It was mostly garbage, sketchy marketplaces, hitmen for hire scams, the kind of stuff that only idiots would fall for. But then we found a thread called "They're Not Who You Think They Are." The post was simple. Have you ever noticed someone close to you acting different, like they've been replaced? We have proof. See for yourself. Redacted. Below, it was a link. Jake, being Jake, clicked it without a second thought. It took us to this black screen with a single, unmarked text file. And inside, a list of names. Thousands of them. Maybe hundreds of thousands. No explanation, no context. Just names. All in alphabetical order. Some were crossed out. Some weren't. We scrolled through, expecting to see nothing familiar. But then, about halfway down the list, Jake's face went pale. "Dude," he whispered, "your boss is on here." I laughed at first. No way. But then I saw it. Brian Kessler, not crossed out. We just stared at the screen for a while. It had to be a coincidence, right? Just some other Brian Kessler. But my stomach felt weird. Something about it just felt wrong. And then we noticed something else. A second list, further down the page. This one was shorter, maybe 100 names. The title above it, "Next Replacements." Jake scrolled through. I wasn't really reading it at first, just staring at the screen in a weird daze, until I saw my name. Noah Carter, not crossed out. I don't know how long we sat there, just staring at it. My whole body felt numb, like I'd been thrown into ice water. This was some kind of joke, right? Just some elaborate internet prank. Then my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You shouldn't have looked." Jake and I just locked eyes. He shut his laptop so fast, it nearly cracked the screen. "Dude," he muttered, "what the hell did we just find?" Neither of us had an answer, but what I do know, the next morning at work, my boss, Brian Kessler, was staring at me, and he didn't blink. Not once. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, all I could see was that damn list. My name, sitting there, like a death sentence. When my alarm went off at 7 a.m., I sat up so fast I felt dizzy. My heart was still hammering from the nightmares I barely remembered, flashes of faces that weren't quite human, of something pressing down on my chest, whispering in a voice that wasn't mine. I told myself it was just paranoia, but then I got to work, and Brian was watching me. It wasn't normal. It wasn't like a boss checking in on an employee. It was wrong. He stood by the break room, staring straight at me as I walked in, the kind of stare where you can feel it burrowing into your skin, like he wasn't looking at me, but through me. His face was completely still, no expression, no movement. But the worst part, he didn't blink. I kept waiting for it, kept staring back, my throat going dry. It should have been natural. People blink every few seconds. But Brian, he just didn't. It was inhuman. I forced myself to act normal, to grab my coffee, like I hadn't just spent the whole night seeing his name on a list of people who had been replaced. I told myself I was being dramatic, that I was just psyching myself out. But then he smiled, and I swear to God, it was the most unnatural thing I've ever seen. Like he had watched people smile before and was trying to imitate it. But something wasn't clicking. His lips stretched too wide. His teeth bared in a way that looked more like an animal than a person. "Morning, Noah." His voice was different. It was still his voice, but it sounded off, like it had been run through a filter, like someone else was speaking through him. I felt cold all over. My hands were shaking so badly, I nearly dropped my coffee. And then he did something that made my stomach twist into knots. He reached out and brushed something off my shoulder. Just a little motion, a small gesture, one that felt too familiar, like he had done it 1,000 times before. Except he never had. Brian was not the kind of boss to touch his employees. He barely even spoke to us unless he had to. But today he was acting like he knew me. I pulled away, trying to laugh it off. Morning." His smile stayed stretched, too wide, too sharp. Then he turned and walked away. I spent the rest of the day spiraling. Every little movement felt wrong. The way my co-workers looked at me felt different. Were they staring more than usual? Was I imagining it? Then at lunch, I overheard something that made my stomach drop. 2 guys from IT were talking near the vending machines, their voices low. I wasn't even paying attention until I heard my boss's name. "Brian's been acting weird." My head snapped up. "You noticed too," the other guy muttered. "Dude, he was totally normal last week, and now he's just, I don't know, different." "I swear he looks taller," the first one whispered, like his proportions changed or some shit. My blood went ice cold. I must have made a sound because they both turned to look at me. "You okay, Noah?" I forced a smile. "Yeah, just headache." They nodded, unconvinced. I barely made it through the rest of the day. Then, right before I left, Brian called me into his office. His office was small, just a desk, a chair, and a single window, overlooking the parking lot. But when I stepped inside, it felt different. The air was too still, too quiet, like the whole room had been vacuum sealed. Brian gestured for me to sit. I didn't want to. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to run, but I forced myself to sit down, gripping the arms of the chair so tight my knuckles went white. Brian folded his hands and just stared. Then finally, he spoke. "You're not sleeping well." It wasn't a question, it was a statement. I tried to laugh. Yeah, long night." He tilted his head, a slow, jerky movement, like his neck wasn't used to bending that way. Then he said something that nearly made me puke. "It's scary, isn't it? Seeing your own name." My whole body locked up. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. I hadn't told anyone about the list. Not a single person except Jake. And even if someone had found out, there was no way Brian should have known. I tried to play dumb. What do you mean?" He smiled again, that horrible, stretched too wide smile. Then he leaned forward, hands on the desk. "Do you know what it feels like?" he whispered. "To be replaced?" My stomach flipped. "First, it's the skin," he continued, his voice too calm. "They peel it back like a suit, cut it in just the right places so it slides off easy. You'd be surprised how clean the process is when you know what you're doing." I felt bile rise in my throat. Then, the bones. They're the hardest part. You have to be precise. Otherwise, they break too soon. But if you're careful, if you do it right, he smiled wider, you can wear them like a glove. I shut up so fast, my chair scraped against the floor. I have to go," I stammered. His head tilted again. Then he blinked. Once. The first time all day. But it wasn't normal. It was wrong. Because when he opened his eyes again, they weren't the same color. His irises had gone completely black. I stumbled back, nearly tripping over myself as I bolted for the door. I didn't stop running until I was in my car, hands shaking so hard I could barely get the key in the ignition. I didn't go home that night. I couldn't. I just drove, parked in a 24-hour McDonald's parking lot, and sat there, staring at my phone, my mind racing. I texted Jake. "Dude, I think my boss knows." He didn't respond. I checked my messages. The last thing he had sent me was from hours ago, a single text. "It's too late." And attached to it, a photo, a blurry, dark photo of something standing outside his window. Something that looked almost human, but not quite. I didn't go home. I didn't sleep. I just sat in that dimly lit McDonald's parking lot, my brain spiraling into something between panic and complete fucking madness. Jake wasn't answering his phone. That picture, the one with the thing outside his window, it wasn't blurry because of the camera. It was blurry because whatever was standing there wasn't fully formed. Its arms were too long. The head was tilted too far to the side, like it didn't understand how a neck was supposed to work. Its eyes, if they were even eyes, were completely black, empty, like it was looking through the glass, but not at Jake, like it was looking for him. I forced myself to breathe, forced myself to think logically. Maybe it was just a prank. Maybe Jake was messing with me. Maybe I was just losing it. But then I saw the notification on my phone. An email from Brian. I didn't open it right away. I just sat there, staring at his name on my screen, feeling my stomach twist itself into knots. The subject line read, "I'd like to talk, Noah." I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. Then my phone buzzed again. A text from Jake. "Help." That was it. One word. I threw my car into reverse so fast the tires screeched. I didn't even think. I just drove, speeding through empty streets, my knuckles white against the steering wheel. Jake lived in a shitty apartment complex on the south side of the city, the kind of place where the hallways smelled like piss. and there were always police sirens in the distance. I parked crooked, barely bothering to lock my car, and sprinted up the stairs to his floor. When I got to his door, it was open, just slightly. A crack, like someone had been expecting me. I pushed it open with my foot, my heart hammering in my chest. The apartment was dark. The only light came from the glow of Jake's computer screen, casting a flickering blue haze across the living room. "Jake?" I whispered. Silence. Something was wrong. The air felt thick, like the room was holding its breath. I stepped inside. The floorboards creaked beneath me, the sound echoing in the stillness. The whole apartment smelled weird, not like garbage or old food, but like copper, like blood. I moved toward the computer, my hands shaking so bad I could barely keep my balance. The screen was open to the same dark web forum we had found before, except now the page had changed. The list, the one with names, was still there, but now there was a new section, a live feed, and on the screen I saw Jake, or what was left of him. He was sitting in his desk chair, his head tilted back at a sickening angle. His skin looked loose, sagging in places it shouldn't, like it wasn't attached properly. His eyes were open, but he wasn't blinking. My breath caught in my throat. "Jake!" Then he moved, not like a person, not like something alive. His body jerked unnaturally, his limbs twisting as if they weren't fully connected to his bones. His jaw snapped open and shut, like a puppet trying to figure out how a mouth was supposed to work. Then, slowly, his head turned toward me. His eyes were too wide, too dark. Then, in a voice that wasn't his, he spoke. "They wore me, Noah." I ran. I don't even remember getting out of there. 1 second, I was frozen in place, my brain trying to process the impossible. And the next, I was tearing down the hallway, my legs moving before I even knew what I was doing. I hit the stairs so fast, I nearly tripped, barely catching myself before slamming into the railing. I could hear footsteps behind me, not running, just walking, slow, patient, like they knew I wasn't going to get away. I made it to my car, fumbled with the keys, and practically threw myself inside. Then, just as I slammed the door shut, I looked up, and Jake was standing at the top of the stairs, smiling. But it wasn't him. It was something wearing his face. The skin didn't fit right. The eyes were still too dark. The head was still tilted at that awful, unnatural angle. Then It spoke again. "It's almost your turn, Noah." I floored it. I don't know how I made it back to my apartment without crashing. I don't remember the drive at all. 1 second, I was speeding through empty streets, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my fingers went numb. And the next, I was inside, barricading my door with furniture. I sat in the dark, my back against the wall, my breathing coming in short, shallow gasps. This wasn't real. It couldn't be real. Then my phone buzzed. I flinched so hard, I almost screamed. A new email from Brian. I hesitated. Then, slowly, I clicked it open. There was no message, no subject line, just a photo. It was a picture of me, asleep in my bed, from inside my apartment. My stomach twisted into something sharp and nauseating. I turned my head, staring at my bedroom door. I had locked it. I had checked twice. Then, slowly, I saw something under the doorframe. A shadow. Something standing on the other side. Not moving. Not making a sound. Just waiting. I didn't move. I couldn't. I just sat there, staring at the shadow under my bedroom door, my breath locked in my throat. It wasn't leaving. It wasn't shifting, or pacing, or knocking. It was just standing there, waiting. The air in my room felt wrong, too still, too thick. I could hear my own heartbeat slamming against my ribs, my pulse a panicked, erratic mess. I kept telling myself, this isn't real. I had to be imagining it. Maybe I was dreaming. Maybe I was still in Jake's apartment, passed out in the dark, and none of this was actually happening. Then the handle started to turn. Slow, deliberate. I scrambled back, shoving myself against the opposite wall, my hand shaking so violently that I nearly dropped my phone. The knob twisted all the way, but the door didn't open. It was locked. The thing outside knew that. But instead of stopping, instead of knocking or forcing its way in, it did something worse. It spoke. Noah. Not a yell, not a whisper. Just my name, flat and lifeless. I clenched my jaw so hard I thought my teeth would crack. It was my own fucking voice. I squeezed my eyes shut, gripping my head with both hands. I didn't want to hear it. I didn't want to believe it. Then, slowly, something pushed against the door. Not like a person leaning into it. More like a body. Something large and heavy, pressing its full weight against the wood, straining against it, like a hungry thing, trying to push its way inside. I sucked in a sharp breath, trying not to make a sound. My whole body was locked in place, stiff with sheer animal terror. And then, the door started to bend, not break, not splinter. Bend, like it was soft, like the thing outside wasn't trying to force it open, it was trying to reshape it. My stomach twisted into knots. I reached for my phone with shaking fingers, my eyes darting back to the shadow under the door. I needed help. I needed to call someone, anyone. I unlocked the screen. My heart stopped. My camera was on, and I wasn't holding it up. The front-facing lens was pointed straight at my face, and in the reflection, just over my shoulder, there was something behind me. I turned too fast. My vision blurred, but when my eyes refocused, nothing. Just my empty bedroom. But I knew what I'd seen. Something tall, too tall for my room, standing right behind me. Its shape was wrong. Its limbs were too thin. Its neck too long. Its face. I didn't see its face, because it didn't have one. My stomach lurched. I looked back at my phone. The camera was still on, and in the reflection, it was still there. Closer. I barely had time to think. I hurled the phone across the room and bolted for the window, yanking it open with shaking hands. The cold air hit me like a slap to the face. Then, behind me, the closet door creaked open. I jumped, didn't look, didn't think, just threw myself out the window. My apartment was on the second floor. The landing wasn't clean. I hit the pavement hard, my shoulder crunching under my own weight. Pain exploded up my arm, but I didn't stop. I scrambled to my feet, my body screaming in protest, and ran. Didn't look back. Couldn't. I had no plan. No idea where I was going. I just knew I had to get the fuck away. I ran for what felt like forever, cutting through alleys, crossing empty intersections, my breath coming in ragged gasps. The streets were eerily silent. The whole city felt empty, like I was the only real thing left. I ducked into a 24-hour Starbucks, hands shaking so bad I could barely pull my hoodie over my head. The place was empty except for a bored-looking barista who barely glanced at me as I stumbled inside. I sat in the farthest booth, my back against the wall, and finally, let myself breathe. I pulled out my phone. My hands were so slick with sweat, I nearly dropped it. There was a new email from Brian. I hesitated. Then, heart pounding, I opened it. No text, just another photo. I felt my stomach drop. It was me. sitting in the Starbucks. Right fucking now. My hoodie pulled up, my hand shaking around my phone, taken from across the room. I looked up, my breath coming fast and shallow. The barista was still behind the counter, staring at her phone. There were no customers, no one near me. But then, a shadow moved. Not in front of me, not beside me, behind me. The reflection in the Starbucks window. There was something standing right behind my seat. Tall, wrong, grinning. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. I just squeezed my eyes shut, gripping the table so hard my nails splintered against the wood. My body felt frozen in place, every muscle locked in pure mind-numbing terror. I felt breath against my neck, slow, deep. Then, right next to my ear, "We need to get you ready." I ran. I don't even remember getting out of there. 1 second I was in the booth, my whole body locked up in sheer, paralyzing fear. And the next, I was sprinting down the street, my legs moving so fast I didn't even feel the pavement under my feet. I ran until my lungs burned, until my vision blurred, until I physically couldn't anymore. I collapsed in an alley, gasping for air, my whole body shaking violently. I wasn't safe. Nowhere was safe. Then, a sound. Not footsteps, not breathing, peeling, like skin being pulled away from flesh. I turned my head, and standing at the mouth of the alley was Jake, but not Jake. His skin was hanging off his body in loose, wet strips. His eyes, just black pits of nothing. His jaw, half unhinged, as if his face was struggling to stay on. And in his hands, he was holding his own fucking skin, like he had peeled himself out of it. I opened my mouth to scream, and he smiled. "Your turn, Noah." Jake, or whatever the fuck was inside of him now, took a step forward. I took a step back. The alley was too quiet. The city had vanished into nothing, like the whole world had been swallowed by a black hole and left me here, in this dead space, standing in front of something that shouldn't exist. Jake was still holding his own skin, hanging from his hands like a wet, discarded suit. But his face, what was left of it, was still moving. His mouth twitched, stretching too wide. His teeth, too many fucking teeth, clenched together in something that was almost a grin. The flesh that was still attached to him was peeling. Bits of it hung from his arms, swaying with every slow, deliberate step. His fingers, long and wrong, curled around the discarded skin, gripping it like it was something precious. And his eyes, they weren't there anymore. Just black pits, hollow and deep, stretching far beyond what should be possible. My legs locked up. I felt like a deer staring at oncoming headlights, knowing the crash was coming, but unable to move, unable to breathe. Then he spoke. "I didn't fight hard enough, Noah." His voice was still his, but off, like it was slipping, like something else was trying to break through. I forced my mouth to work, my breath hitching in my throat. What are you?" He laughed. Or it laughed. A sound that wasn't human, low and wet, like something gurgling on its own blood. Then, the worst fucking part. He lifted his own discarded skin and started putting it back on. I fucking lost it. I turned and ran, tearing down the alley so fast my vision blurred, my pulse hammering against my skull. My thoughts were nothing but white noise, a scream trapped inside my own head. I didn't know where I was going, didn't care. I just knew I had to get the fuck away from whatever that was. I sprinted through the empty city streets, my lungs burning, my legs screaming for rest. But I didn't stop, couldn't stop, because I could still hear it. The peeling, the sick, wet sliding of skin being forced back onto something that wasn't human. I turned a corner and nearly ran straight into Brian. He was just standing there, in the middle of the street, like he had been waiting for me. His suit was immaculate, his tie perfectly straight, but his eyes, black, empty, just like Jake's. I staggered backward, nearly tripping over my own feet. "Stay the fuck away from me," I gasped. Brian tilted his head. The motion was too smooth, too calculated. Then he smiled and peeled his lips back, not like a person smiling, like a person pulling their skin away from their mouth, revealing teeth that weren't teeth, long thin spikes of bone growing from inside his gums. I turned to run, but something grabbed me. Too many hands, fingers wrapped around my arms, my shoulders, my waist. They were everywhere. Cold, smooth hands gripping me, pulling me back, holding me in place. I fought, thrashing, kicking, my heart a wild snarl of terror. But it didn't matter. I was caught. I wasn't alone. Figures were coming from the dark, from the shadows of buildings, from doorways, from the places that had been empty just moments ago. And they all looked human, at first. Then I saw their skin, loose, ill-fitting, hanging in places it shouldn't, shifting, stretching, like it didn't belong to them. And their eyes, black, every single one of them. I tried to scream. A hand clamped over my mouth, not to suffocate me, to keep me quiet. Brian stepped forward. His mouth was still peeled open, revealing the bones underneath. When he spoke, his voice was calm, reassuring, like a fucking doctor explaining a routine procedure. "You should feel honored, Noah," he said. My body locked. The hands holding me tightened. "You weren't just chosen," he continued. "You were made for this." I thrashed harder, my entire body a desperate, writhing thing. But it was useless. They were too strong. Brian lifted his hands, and I saw he was holding something. A knife. Not a normal one. Not metal. It looked like it was made of bone. Yellowed, jagged, organic. I sucked in a breath, my entire body shaking. Brian crouched down, bringing himself level with my face. His head tilted again, his smile widening too far. "You don't need this skin anymore," he whispered. Then he raised the knife and started cutting. The pain, I can't even describe it. White hot. A pressure that wasn't just physical. It was deeper than that. Like something was being peeled out of me. Like my entire existence was being replaced. I screamed. I screamed so hard my throat shredded. But no one heard. Because by the time I opened my eyes, I was one of them. Blog. I don't know how long it's been. A week, a month, a year. I don't think it matters. I wake up in the morning and go to work just like before. I wear my suit. I answer emails. I go to meetings. And no one notices the difference. Because I still look like me. I still sound like me. But I know the truth. The skin doesn't fit right. It stretches when I move. The mouth isn't mine. The voice isn't mine. The thing underneath, that's the real me. And soon, I'll find someone else. Someone who doesn't blink. And it will be their turn. I found my dad's old laptop. The only bookmark was a dark website titled "How to Replace Your Son." Alright, I don't even know how to start this, but here goes. This isn't some "I saw a ghost in my backyard" type of story. This is real. It happened to me, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. A few weeks ago, I went back to my mom's house to help her clean out some old junk. My dad passed away 2 years ago, and she finally felt ready to go through his things. He was never really a tech guy, but in one of the boxes, I found something weird. His old laptop. Now, this wasn't just some random Dell or MacBook. It was one of those old, thick-ass laptops from the early 2000s, the kind that weighed as much as a brick. It looked like it hadn't been touched in years, but when I plugged it in, the thing actually powered up. The wallpaper was the default Windows XP background. You know, the rolling green hills and blue sky. But there was something off. The screen flickered every few seconds, and the mouse moved a little too smoothly, like it wasn't really following my hand. Then I opened the browser. There was only one bookmark. Just one. No YouTube, no Facebook, nothing. The title, How to Replace Your Son. At first, I thought it was some kind of joke. Maybe some messed up clickbait article my dad had accidentally clicked on. But when I opened the page, my stomach dropped. It wasn't an article. It was a forum. A dark web forum. The background was pitch black, and the text was in that old school neon green, like something out of the Matrix. The thread titles were even worse. Choosing the right replacement, finding the perfect match, behavioral mimicry, and how to make them believe. The disposal process, making it look like an accident. I felt sick. I didn't want to keep scrolling, but my hands moved on their own. The posts weren't written like horror stories or fiction. They were instructions, step-by-step guides on how to replace a real, living person. Some posts talked about voice training, how to perfectly copy a person's speech patterns, their slang, their tone. Others discussed surgical modifications. One user talked about bone shaving, another about removing fingerprints and replacing them with someone else's. And then I saw a post that made my blood turn to ice. It was titled, My Replacement Timeline, 2003 to 2020. I clicked on it. The first thing I saw was my dad's username. I remember just staring at the screen, my heart pounding in my ears. The post was long, way too detailed, but one part stood out immediately. Step 1. Identify the imperfections. Ethan had a birthmark on his left wrist. It needed to go. His voice was too high when he was young, corrected with exposure therapy. By age 12, he no longer cried when hurt. By 15, he was indistinguishable. That's when I stopped breathing, because my name is Ethan, and I used to have a birthmark on my left wrist. I don't remember getting rid of it. I don't remember it ever not being there. But I looked down at my wrist, and the skin was smooth. No mark. Nothing. I slammed the laptop shut. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely breathe. My dad wasn't a violent man. He wasn't abusive. He was just normal. He took me to school, helped me with homework, brought me McDonald's when Mom said no. So why the hell was he posting about modifying me? I needed answers, and I knew exactly where to find them. The laptop. I took a deep breath and opened it back up. But the second I did, something changed. The screen didn't just flicker this time. It glitched. The browser closed on its own, and in its place, a single line of text appeared on the screen. You shouldn't have seen that, Ethan. I swear to God, my whole body locked up. I wasn't touching the keyboard. I wasn't even breathing. But the text kept appearing. He spent years perfecting you, and now you're ruining it. I slammed the laptop shut so hard I thought I cracked the screen. I didn't care. I grabbed it, shoved it back into the box, and ran downstairs to my mom. I needed to tell her. I needed to know. But when I reached the kitchen, she was already looking at me, like she was expecting me. Her voice was calm, too calm. Did you find something, sweetheart? I couldn't even speak. I just held up the laptop, waiting for some kind of reaction, but she didn't even look at it. She just smiled. And then she said the last thing I ever expected to hear. Your father worked so hard to make you perfect. Don't ruin it now. And that's when I knew. I was never supposed to find that laptop. And now, I don't think I'm supposed to exist. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. My mom's words were still ringing in my ears. Your father worked so hard to make you perfect. Don't ruin it now. She stood there, just staring at me, with this gentle, patient smile, like I was a little kid who had just broken a vase and she was waiting for me to apologize. But I wasn't a kid, and I wasn't sorry. I was terrified. My grip on the laptop tightened. My whole body felt like it was trapped in ice, my mind running 1,000,000 miles a second. This had to be a joke, a prank, some kind of sick, twisted misunderstanding. But deep down, I already knew the truth. My dad had been changing me, and my mom had known the whole time. I took a slow step back. What does that mean? My voice cracked, my mouth suddenly dry. My mom didn't answer right away. She just sighed, tilting her head, like she was disappointed. And then, in the calmest voice I've ever heard, she said, "You weren't supposed to remember. I don't even remember dropping the laptop. I don't remember my legs moving. All I know is that 1 second I was in the kitchen, and the next I was running. Full speed. Out the front door, down the driveway, into the street. My lungs burning, my heart pounding against my ribs. I didn't have my phone, no wallet, no keys. Just the clothes on my back and the taste of bile in my throat. I sprinted for at least 4 blocks before I stopped. The second I did, I realized something. I had no idea where to go. My mom wasn't just some random psycho. She was my mother. She had raised me, taught me how to ride a bike, took me to Starbucks after school, bought me my first phone. And my dad, I wanted to puke. The words from that forum post were still flashing in my head. Ethan had a birthmark on his left wrist. It needed to go. How the hell had he made it go away? I squeezed my wrist. The skin there felt normal. Too normal. No scar, no discoloration, no sign that anything had ever been removed. I stumbled into a 24-hour McDonald's. I don't know why. Maybe because it was open, because it was bright, because I needed to be somewhere normal. The second I stepped inside, the smell of grease and burnt coffee hit me like a brick. The place was almost empty, just a couple of workers and some guy passed out in a booth. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, flickering slightly. I went straight to the bathroom and locked the door. My hands were still shaking. I turned on the sink, splashed cold water on my face, and looked at myself in the mirror. And that's when I noticed it. My reflection wasn't quite right. I leaned closer. My eyes looked too still. My expression was blank, like I wasn't actually reacting to what had just happened. And then, my reflection blinked, but I didn't. I jumped back so fast I slammed into the stall door. My breathing was shallow, sharp. The reflection just stood there, staring at me, frozen in the same position. Then, so fast I barely processed it, its mouth twitched, like it was trying not to smile. I bolted out of the bathroom. I didn't care who saw. I didn't care if I looked insane. I needed to get the hell out of there. But as soon as I stepped outside, my stomach dropped, because parked right across the street was my mom's car. She was sitting in the driver's seat, perfectly still, her hands resting on the wheel. She wasn't looking at me. She was just waiting. I didn't move. My brain screamed at me to run, but my feet wouldn't listen. That's when she finally turned her head, and I swear to God, her face changed. Just for a second. 1 second, she was my mom. The next, her features glitched. Her eyes darkened. Her lips stretched too wide, revealing too many teeth. Then, just as quickly, she was normal again. She smiled and raised her hand. She waved at me. I ran. I don't know how long I ran. I don't know how I didn't pass out. But at some point, I ended up in a gas station parking lot. I ducked behind the building, trying to catch my breath. My whole body was shaking. That's when I heard my phone ring. My phone. I didn't have my phone, but the sound was coming from my pocket. Slowly, my fingers reached inside, and my heart nearly stopped, because in my pocket was a phone identical to mine. Same lock screen, same scratches on the case, but I knew for a fact it wasn't mine. My hands were shaking as I pressed the power button. The screen lit up. One missed call. From Mom. Then, as I watched, a new text popped up. Mom, come home, sweetheart. You're not safe out there. I threw the phone as hard as I could. It shattered against the pavement, the screen cracking into a spider web of glass. But the second it hit the ground, it rang again. I didn't even pick it up this time. I just turned and ran, my chest tightening with panic. I needed help. Real help. I made it to a police station about 15 minutes later. I must have looked like a lunatic when I burst inside, sweaty, out of breath, shaking like a junkie going through withdrawal. One of the officers stood up immediately. Sir, are you okay? My throat was too dry. I swallowed hard. I need to report something. My mom, my dad, I stopped, because behind the officer was a mirror, and in that mirror, I saw my reflection. It was standing completely still. My chest was still heaving, my hands still trembling, but in the reflection, I wasn't moving at all. Then, slowly, deliberately, my reflection raised its hand and waved at me, just like my mom had. I stumbled backward. My head was spinning. Sir? The officer asked again. Are you hurt? I turned back to him. His face was filled with concern, genuine concern. I opened my mouth. I was about to tell him everything, and then his eyes flickered, just for a split second, like static on a broken screen, like his face was trying to decide which version to be. And that's when I knew. I couldn't trust anyone. I didn't move. I couldn't. The cop just stood there, waiting for me to say something, his face almost normal. But I had seen it. That flicker, that glitch, just like my mom, just like my reflection in the mirror. They were everywhere. My pulse pounded against my skull. I needed to stay calm. If I ran now, he'd know. He'd know I had figured it out. I forced myself to swallow, my throat dry as sandpaper. I think I'm being followed, I said, barely above a whisper. His head tilted slightly, too slightly, like he had preloaded the movement, like an animation that hadn't quite loaded all the way. Followed by who? He asked. By who? I didn't even know how to answer that. By my family, by my own fucking reflection, by something that looks human but isn't. I shook my head. I don't know. My voice wavered. I just need a place to stay for a while. The officer studied me for a moment. Then he nodded. Why don't you have a seat? He gestured toward a row of plastic chairs along the wall. My legs felt like concrete blocks, but I forced myself to walk over and sit down. He disappeared into a back room, probably to get some paperwork or something. The second he was gone, I gripped my knees, my breathing ragged. I needed to think. I needed to figure out a way to get out of here before. Ethan! My stomach dropped. I turned my head slowly. There was a man sitting right next to me. I hadn't heard him sit down, hadn't seen him when I came in, but there he was, inches away, his body stiff as a corpse, and he knew my name. I opened my mouth to say something, but then I got a good look at his face. It was wrong. His skin was too smooth, like polished wax. His hair was too perfect, like every strand had been placed there manually. And his smile, oh God, his smile wasn't real. It was stretched too wide, like someone had carved it onto his face with a scalpel. His eyes were lifeless, empty, like plastic. He leaned in. I couldn't move. My whole body locked up, like something inside me knew if I made the wrong move, this thing would snap my neck like a twig. He whispered, "You were supposed to be perfect." A violent shiver ran down my spine. My breath hitched. I was drowning in my own fear, my pulse hammering so loud I thought my skull would crack open. Then, the door creaked open. The officer stepped back into the room. I snapped my head toward him, my mouth already open, ready to scream for help. But then I turned back. The man was gone. The chair next to me was empty, like he had never been there at all. The cop walked toward me, holding a clipboard. "You're gonna have to fill this out," he said. "We'll get you set up for the night." I barely heard him. My heart was still hammering. What the fuck was happening to me? I reached for the clipboard, but when my fingers touched it, my vision flickered, just like that glitch I'd seen in my reflection, just like my mom's face. The whole room jerked, like someone had skipped a frame in reality. And for half a second, I wasn't in the police station anymore. I was in a surgical room. Bright, sterile lights, stainless steel tables, instruments lined up in perfect rows, and on the table in front of me, a body. My body. It was me. A perfect, lifeless replica of me. Skin peeled back, muscles exposed, wires threaded where veins should have been. The eyes were open but empty, like they had never been used to see. And standing over it, my dad. He had a scalpel in one hand. He was smiling. Then, I was back in the police station. The clipboard was on my lap, my fingers clutching it so hard, my knuckles were white. I shot to my feet, the chair screeching against the floor. I have to go." My voice came out hoarse, broken. The officer frowned. "Sir, you're not making any sense. We just need you to..." I ran, out of the station, into the night. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't care. I just needed to get away. The motel. I ended up at a cheap motel on the outskirts of town, the kind with flickering neon lights and a broken vending machine. I paid in cash, because I wasn't about to use a card they could track. The room was small, filthy. The air smelled like mildew and cigarette smoke. The carpet was stained. The mattress was too soft, but at least I was alone. Or so I thought. I locked the door, bolted it, checked the bathroom, checked under the bed, stood in front of the mirror for 10 whole minutes, making sure my reflection didn't move on its own. Finally, I sat on the bed, my back against the headboard. I kept the light on. I wasn't going to sleep. I couldn't. But at some point, exhaustion took over. My eyelids got heavy. My body slumped. And before I knew it, I was out, the dream. I don't know how long I slept, but I dreamed. I was standing in my childhood bedroom. Everything was exactly the way I remembered it. The old wooden dresser, the Pokemon posters, the glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling. But something was wrong. I turned around and saw myself. Not in a mirror, not a reflection, another me. He was standing in the doorway staring at me. Then slowly, he smiled and whispered, "You were never the first one." I woke up screaming, not alone. My chest was heaving, sweat soaked my shirt. The room was dark, but I could still hear the buzz of the neon lights outside. I wasn't safe. I needed to leave. I sat up, my body shaking, and that's when I saw it, the closet door. It was open. I never left it open. I swallowed hard. My mouth was dry. My pulse roared in my ears. Then, a whisper from the darkness inside the closet, a voice that sounded exactly like mine. You were supposed to stay asleep. And the last thing I saw, before the lights flickered out completely, was a hand reaching out from the shadows. I couldn't move. The hand stretched out from the darkness inside the closet, too long, too thin, like it had been starved for years. The fingers twitched, reaching for me, the nails cracked and peeling. Then, it spoke again. You were supposed to stay asleep. It was my voice. No, not mine. It sounded like me, but wrong. Like a recording played through broken speakers. Like something trying to mimic me, but not getting it quite right. My entire body seized up. Every nerve screamed at me to run, to launch myself off the bed and bolt for the door. But I couldn't. I was trapped, frozen in place, like a helpless animal staring into the jaws of something ancient and starving. Then it stepped out. It was me. But it wasn't. It was pale, skin grayish and thin, stretched tight over sharp bones. The lips were cracked, too dry, peeling at the edges like dead flesh, trying to hold itself together. And the eyes. Oh God, the eyes. They were empty, like marbles, reflecting just enough light to look wet, but not alive. It smiled, and my stomach twisted because it was the exact same smile I had seen on my mother. Like it wasn't real, like it was something designed, practiced, perfected. It took another step forward, the floorboards creaking beneath its feet. I forced my body to move, to do anything. My fingers twitched, my breath hitched. It moved too, at the same time, like it was copying me, like a goddamn marionette. They don't need you anymore. It whispered the words so softly, I barely heard them. I swallowed hard, my throat dry and raw. What the fuck are you? I managed to choke out. Its head twitched, like it was trying to process the question, but couldn't. Then, it lurched forward. I threw myself off the bed. My shoulders slammed into the nightstand, knocking the cheap motel lamp to the floor with a loud crash. My legs tangled in the sheets, but I didn't stop. I scrambled to my feet just as the thing came at me. I caught a glimpse of it up close, too close. The way its skin didn't quite fit right, like it had been stretched over something else. The veins beneath it were dark, too dark, almost black. It grabbed my wrist. Its hand was freezing. Not just cold, freezing, like it had been pulled from a morgue. I screamed, and then it spoke again, but this time it didn't sound like me. It sounded like my dad. Stop struggling, son. You're making this harder than it needs to be. My stomach dropped. Number. No, no, no. I twisted violently, kicking, clawing, thrashing. Its grip was inhumanly strong, fingers digging into my wrist like iron clamps. But the second I brought my knee up and slammed it into its ribs, something cracked, but not like a bone breaking, like plastic snapping. The thing jerked back, and I ran. I threw myself toward the door, fumbling with the lock, my hands slick with sweat. Finally, the bolt slid back, and I tore out into the hallway. The motel was empty. No guests, no workers, no sounds. Dead silent, like I had stepped into a place that had already been abandoned for years. I sprinted for the exit, my lungs burning, my head spinning with too many questions, too much fear. too much wrong. I needed to get away. I needed to get somewhere safe. But where the hell was safe? Because now, I didn't just feel like I was being followed. I felt like I was being hunted. The road to nowhere. I ran for miles. The road stretched out ahead, endless, the distant glow of a city on the horizon. But I couldn't stop. I wouldn't stop. Every time I looked back, I felt it. Not just one. More of them, moving in the darkness, watching, waiting, like shadows wearing human skin. I couldn't tell how long I'd been running. My legs felt like they would give out at any second. My breath came in sharp, ragged gasps. Then I saw it. A gas station. Lights buzzing. A single car parked outside. I ran inside, nearly crashing into the counter. The guy behind it, a skinny teenager wearing a name tag that just said Dev, looked up from his phone. He blinked. "Dude, you good?" I tried to speak, but all that came out was a dry, wheezing gasp. He frowned. "You need me to call someone?" I shook my head violently. "Number no calls. Just let me stay here for a minute." He shrugged and went back to his phone. I collapsed into a chair near the window, my entire body trembling. I watched the parking lot, watched the road, waited for the things to come for me. But nothing happened. For the first time in hours, there was only silence. I let out a shaky breath, trying to calm myself down. Maybe, just maybe, I had outrun them. And then, my phone vibrated. I stiffened. I didn't remember picking it up. I pulled it out slowly, my hand still shaking. One new message. No name, no number. Just unknown. "You can't run forever, Ethan." I swallowed hard. Then, another message. A picture. My stomach dropped. It was a photo of me, sitting in the gas station. Right now. Right this second. I shot up from my chair, my pulse thundering in my ears. My head snapped toward the window. Nothing. The parking lot was empty. But then, the lights inside flickered, and in the reflection, I saw them, standing behind me. Too many. Too close. And they were all smiling. I turned around instantly. The gas station was empty. No one stood behind me. No figures. No shadows. Nothing. But I had seen them. Dozens of them. Standing just inches away from me, in the reflection. Staring. Smiling. I stepped back, my breath coming in ragged gasps. My body was shaking so hard, I thought I'd collapse. The cashier, Dev, looked up from his phone, annoyed. "Dude, what the hell is wrong with you?" I tried to answer, but my throat was too dry. My heart was hammering, my pulse like a gunshot in my skull. I turned back toward the window and froze, because my reflection was still there, but I wasn't moving. I lifted my hand. My reflection didn't. It just stood there, staring at me. Then, ever so slowly, it smiled. Not a normal smile, not even a human smile. Too wide, too sharp, like it was splitting open its own face. I stumbled back, knocking over a display of chips. My hands dug into my scalp, my breath shuddering. What the fuck was happening to me? And then, my reflection moved, but not like I did. It reached out, pressed its hand against the glass, but from the inside, like it was trying to get out. My stomach turned, because its fingers weren't fingers anymore. They were bones, exposed, raw, stretching through the skin, like something had peeled it away from the inside. I whipped around to Dev. "Tell me you see that." He sighed, put his phone down, and actually looked. Then, his entire body stiffened. His mouth fell open. His eyes went wide. "Jesus fucking Christ," he whispered. I felt a jolt of relief. Finally, someone else could see it. Someone else could prove I wasn't crazy. And then, he smiled. The exact same way. Too wide, too sharp, too much like them. I felt the air get ripped from my lungs. My body locked up, my hands clenching into fists. Slowly, Dev stood up. His body twitched like a broken puppet, his head tilting at an unnatural angle. "You were never supposed to get this far, Ethan." His voice wasn't his voice. It was mine. And then the lights flickered out. No escape darkness swallowed the entire store. I couldn't see, couldn't breathe. My heartbeat was the only thing I could hear, pounding, screaming, threatening to burst through my ribs. Then, footsteps. Too many. They were all around me, coming from every direction. "Come back, Ethan. You don't belong out here. It's time to go home." The voices were overlapping. Some sounded like my mom. Some sounded like my dad. But the worst ones sounded like me. I reached out blindly, knocking over shelves, feeling my way through the dark. My hands hit something cold. A door handle. The stockroom. I wrenched it open and stumbled inside, slamming it shut behind me. Silence. No footsteps. No whispers. Just the sound of my own ragged, shaking breath. I pressed my back against the door, sliding to the floor. My entire body was on fire, every nerve screaming in terror. Then, a click. From my right. I turned my head too fast, my vision swimming. There was a computer, an old laptop, sitting on a wooden table in the corner, the screen glowing faintly in the dark. My breath hitched. I knew that computer. It was the same fucking one I found in my dad's old boxes. I swallowed hard, my body screaming at me to run, to fucking run. But something inside me knew. I had to look. I had to know. I crawled toward it, my hands shaking. The screen was open to a single web page, a dark web forum, the same one I had found before. But this time, there was a new thread, pinned at the very top. I felt sick before I even read the title, but I did. I had to. The final step, replacing the last one. And below it, a photo of me, sitting in the gas station, right here, right now. I clamped a hand over my mouth, tears burning in my eyes. My whole body felt like it was shutting down, my breath coming in short, sharp bursts. Then, the screen glitched, the image flickered, and suddenly, I wasn't sitting in the gas station anymore. I was lying on a surgical table, my own body strapped down, my mouth forced open in a silent scream, and standing over me, my father, holding a scalpel, smiling. The process was a success. My head snapped away from the screen. I couldn't take it. I couldn't fucking take it anymore. But then, the laptop spoke. Not a notification, not a video. It was a voice. Calm, patient, artificial. The last one has been found. And then, the screen turned to a live feed, a security camera, showing the gas station, showing me, and behind me, them. They weren't smiling anymore. They were opening their mouths, too wide, too deep, and inside, there was nothing, just a gaping, endless black void. I spun around, the door burst open, and the last thing I saw was myself, walking toward me, smiling, reaching out, and whispering, "You're not Ethan anymore." The final log. There is no happy ending. I don't know what happened after that. I don't know where I am. I don't know if I'm me anymore. But if you're reading this, if you ever find an old laptop with a single bookmark, don't open it. Don't read it. And for the love of God, don't ever look in the mirror again, because you might see something else, looking back, and it might be smiling. I paid a dark web paranormal investigator to analyze my house. His last message was, "Get out now." All right, so before I even get into this, let me make something clear. I'm not an idiot. I've watched enough horror movies, seen enough Reddit horror threads, and listened to enough of those deep web horror stories on YouTube to know not to mess with this kind of thing. And yet, here I am. This all started about 6 months ago when I moved into a new house just outside of Chicago. Not some ancient haunted mansion, not some decrepit abandoned asylum, just a regular suburban house in a quiet cul-de-sac, the kind of place where you'd expect old ladies to be watering their plants at 6 a.m. It was supposed to be normal, safe. It wasn't. I started noticing small things at first. My dog, Benny, a 4-year-old Labrador, refused to go into the basement. Not in that funny, scared of the dark way, but in a full-on, claws dug into the floor, growling at nothing kind of way. Then, there were the noises, soft, shuffling sounds, in the middle of the night. Sometimes, I'd hear what I swore was whispering, just at the edge of my hearing, like someone was mumbling from inside the walls. And then, there was my phone. It started with notifications, random Snapchats from usernames I didn't recognize, just blank images with timestamps. My Ring doorbell would go off at 3 a.m., but there was never anyone there. My phone alarm would change by itself, sometimes blaring in the middle of the night at 3:33 a.m., no matter how many times I reset it. Now, most people would call an actual paranormal investigator at this point. You know, someone with a website and customer reviews. But me, I was an idiot. I wanted to find someone who really knew what they were doing. Someone who wasn't tied down by ethics or rules. So, in my infinite wisdom, I went looking in the one place that always leads to bad decisions, the dark web. It didn't take long. I found a forum thread called Unseen Forces and Cursed Places. The posts were exactly what I expected. Half-baked creepypastas, fake ghost stories, and people pretending to be exorcists. But one comment stood out. Need real help? Message Abyss Watcher 42. He finds what shouldn't be found. So, like an absolute moron, I sent him a message. I kept it simple. I think my house is haunted. My dog won't go in the basement, and weird things keep happening. Can you help? He responded within minutes. Send me your address. I'll analyze the place remotely first. Now, normally, I'd never give my address to some random guy from the deep web, but something about this felt different. Like, this guy wasn't trying to scam me. He wasn't asking for money. He just seemed curious. So, I did it. I sent my address. That was my first mistake. That night, I had the worst sleep of my life. Around 2:50 a.m., I woke up to a notification on my phone. Unknown number. One new image. It was a screenshot of my house. A live view from Google Earth. Except, there was someone standing at my front door. I sat up so fast I almost fell out of bed. My heart was pounding. My Ring doorbell app wasn't showing anything. No notifications, no motion alerts. But this image, it was real. And whoever was at my door wasn't there anymore. I barely had time to process it before another message came through. Check your basement door. I don't know why I listened. I should have locked my bedroom door, called the cops, done anything except what I did. But instead, I grabbed the baseball bat from under my bed and crept downstairs. The house was silent. No creaking floors, no wind against the windows, just dead silence. When I reached the basement door, my stomach dropped. It was open, not just unlocked, wide open, and from the darkness below, I swore I heard breathing, long, slow, deep. I was done. I sprinted back upstairs, locked my bedroom door, and texted Abyss Watcher 42 again. Who are you? No response. For the next 2 hours, I sat in my bed, gripping my bat like it was the only thing keeping me alive. My phone buzzed again, around 4:30 a.m. A new message. You need to leave. Now. I wish I could tell you I ran, that I grabbed my keys, bolted for the door, and never looked back, that I did the smart thing, but I didn't. I sat there, in my locked bedroom, gripping my bat so tight my fingers went numb, staring at my phone screen as if it held all the answers. The words from Abyss Watcher 42 kept burning in my brain. You need to leave. Now. But where the hell was I supposed to go? It was the middle of the night. I had no family nearby. My closest friends lived across the city, and I wasn't about to show up at their door at 4 a.m. like some lunatic, mumbling about noises and random messages from a guy I met on the dark web. I decided to wait it out until sunrise. Biggest mistake of my life. Around 5:12 a.m., just when I was starting to think maybe I'd overreacted, my phone buzzed again. Another message from Abyss Watcher 42. He's still there. My stomach clenched. I didn't want to respond. I didn't want to ask who. A second later, another message popped up. Check your closet. Number. No. I wasn't going to do that. There was no reason to do that. But my body betrayed me. My breathing went shallow. My hands felt numb. And without realizing it, I started shifting my gaze toward my closet door. It was closed. It had been closed all night. Hadn't it? I swallowed hard and reached for my bedside lamp, flipping it on. A warm yellow glow spread through my room, washing away the shadows, pushing back the paranoia. Everything looked normal. Just my small, slightly messy bedroom, my sneakers by the door, my jacket slung over my desk chair. But my closet door, it looked wrong, like it was too closed, like someone had pressed it shut from the inside. My heartbeat pounded in my ears. I clenched my bat so hard my fingers ached. Another buzz from my phone. He's listening. The second I saw those words, my closet door moved, just an inch, just enough to hear it, that quiet, slow creak of wood shifting. I lost it. I jumped out of bed, swung the bat so hard at the closet door that the impact rattled up my arms. The door flew open, slamming against the wall. Nothing. Empty. My shirts hung motionless. My shoes sat untouched. Nothing but fabric and shadows. I was breathing so hard, I felt lightheaded. My phone buzzed again. He's under your bed. I ran. I didn't stop to check. I didn't even turn around. I bolted out of my bedroom, flew down the stairs, grabbed my car keys off the counter, and sprinted for the front door. Then I froze. The door was unlocked. I knew with absolute certainty that I had locked it. I remembered locking it. But now, it stood slightly ajar, open just an inch, like someone had turned the knob from the inside. I wasn't alone in my house. I wasn't alone in my room. Something had been in there with me. I threw the door open and ran to my car. My hands were shaking so bad, I dropped the keys twice before jamming them into the ignition. The engine roared to life. Headlights carved through the dark street. I slammed my foot on the gas, my tires screeching as I flew out of my driveway like a bat out of hell. In the rearview mirror, I saw my house shrinking into the distance. And just for a second, just a split second, I saw movement in my bedroom window. Something pulling the closet door shut again. I didn't stop driving until I reached a 24-hour McDonald's about 20 miles away. It was the only place open at that hour, and I needed to be around people. I needed light, noise, something to keep me from losing my mind. I parked, locked my doors, and just sat there in the driver's seat, trying to control my breathing. My phone was still clutched in my hand. I had so many questions. Who was Abyss Watcher 42? How did he know what was happening? How had he seen inside my house? I opened my messages. Me. What the hell is going on? Him. I told you to leave sooner. Me. Who was in my house? Him. Not who. What? My mouth went dry. Me. You're telling me it wasn't human? There was a long pause. Then, him. It wears skin like a costume. It's been waiting. I felt like throwing up. I had been in that house for months. Had it been there the whole time, watching me, crawling out at night? My stomach twisted as a realization hit me. I had left the house, but I hadn't locked it. And Benny, my dog, was still inside. I threw the car into reverse so fast my tires screeched, backing out of the McDonald's parking lot like a maniac. I didn't care. I didn't care if I was overreacting, if this was all some elaborate sick joke. I wasn't leaving my dog in that house alone. The drive back felt longer. The closer I got, the heavier the air became. My street was quiet, unnervingly still. My house sat at the end of the cul-de-sac, dark and lifeless, the front door exactly as I had left it, wide open. I parked in the driveway, my hands gripping the steering wheel like a vice. Something was wrong. I could feel it. I stepped out of the car, every nerve in my body screaming at me to leave, leave, leave. But I couldn't. I had to get Benny. I moved carefully up the front steps, my shoes barely making a sound. The open doorway yawned before me like a mouth, swallowing the moonlight. The house was silent, too silent. I stepped inside. The second my foot crossed the threshold, the smell hit me. Rot. Thick, wet rot, like meat left in the sun too long. I gagged, covering my mouth. My heart was hammering. I couldn't hear Benny. I couldn't hear anything. I stepped deeper into the house, trying to ignore the way the darkness seemed thicker now, like the air itself had weight. Then I heard it. A sound from the basement. A wet, dragging sound. Something shifting. Something breathing. My phone buzzed. I almost dropped it. A new message. From Abyss Watcher 42. Get out! Now. Then, before I could move, something whispered my name. From inside the basement. There are some things the human brain refuses to process. Things so utterly wrong that your body locks up before your mind even fully registers the horror. That's what happened when I heard my name whisper up from the basement. Not a normal whisper. Not the kind you hear in a library or over the phone. It was wet, stretched out, like something struggling to shape the syllables with a mouth that wasn't meant for speaking. I froze. I knew that I had to run, but my body wouldn't move. It was like my instincts had shut down, leaving me stranded at the edge of survival. The silence around me felt heavy, like the air had turned to sludge, pressing against my skin. Then the staircase creaked. Not from me, from below. Something was moving up the basement steps. That broke me. My paralysis shattered, and I stumbled backward, nearly tripping over my own feet as I fumbled for my phone. My fingers were ice cold, barely able to grip the screen. A message from Abyss Watcher 42 sat unread. I opened it with shaking hands. Whatever you do, do not look at its face. I barely had time to register what that meant before I heard it. A click. A single, soft click from my left, like a door unlocking. I turned my head. The basement door, the one I had left open, was now halfway shut, and a hand was wrapped around the edge. Not a normal hand. The fingers were too long. The skin, if you could even call it that, was stretched too thin, gray and damp. like old meat left out in the rain. The nails were wrong, jagged and splitting down the middle, like something had tried to peel them apart. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. The hand twitched. Then, with horrific slowness, something peeked through the crack in the door. Not all the way, just enough to let me see one eye. I didn't know what I was expecting. Some kind of monstrous, glowing red orb. A black, soulless void. Number. It was worse. It was a human eye, but wrong. It was too big, too round, like the socket had been stretched to fit it. The sclera was yellowed, veined with dark, pulsing cracks. The pupil was huge, swallowing nearly everything, so dark it didn't even look real. And the worst part? It was smiling. Not the mouth. The eye. I don't know how to explain it, but I felt it. It was smiling at me. I moved before I could think, sprinting for the door like a bat out of hell. But the second I reached for the handle, the basement door slammed open. Not with a crash. Not violently. Just open. Like it had never been closed in the first place. And standing there, half hidden in the darkness of the basement, was it. My vision blurred. My mind went white hot with panic. The thing wasn't moving. It was just standing there. I didn't see its face. I refused to. I kept my gaze low, my eyes locked onto its feet. Bare, grayish-purple skin, bones jutting out at unnatural angles, toes too long, curled into the floorboards like claws. It was breathing, shallow, rattling breaths, like it had just learned how. Then it did something that almost made my heart stop. It took a step forward, not quickly, not menacingly, slowly, like it was testing the floor, like it was learning. And then it spoke, or rather, it tried to. The sound that came out of its mouth was broken, like a recording played in reverse. But underneath the garbled distortion, I recognized something familiar. It was my own voice. He. Lo. I nearly threw up. That was all it took. That single, mimicked word in my own voice was the final crack in my sanity. I didn't care about the dock. I didn't care about anything except getting the hell out of that house. I ripped the front door open and ran. The drive. I don't remember getting in my car. I barely remember driving. All I know is that I ended up on the highway, speeding toward downtown Chicago, surrounded by early morning commuters who had no idea that I had just left something inhuman standing in my house. My phone wouldn't stop vibrating. At some point, I glanced down at my notifications. 5 new messages from Abyss Watcher 42. I hesitated before opening them. Him. It's not done with you. Him. It knows your name. Him. It knows your face. Him. Do not go back. Him. You are already marked. I slammed the phone down like it had burned me. Marked? What the hell did that mean? My mind was spiraling. Had it followed me? Was it still watching? I glanced at my rearview mirror, half expecting to see that thing sitting in my back seat, its 2 long fingers twitching against the leather, its smiling eye locked onto mine. But there was nothing. At least, I thought there was nothing. Then my phone rang. Unknown caller. My stomach plummeted. I didn't want to answer, but I did. I don't know why. I pressed the phone to my ear. For a few seconds, there was nothing. Just the distant hiss of static. Then, a sound. A slow, wet clicking. Like bones cracking. Or worse, like teeth tapping together. I could feel it. It was listening. Then, in my own voice, "Come back home." I nearly veered off the road. I hung up and threw my phone onto the passenger seat, breathing so hard my vision blurred. This wasn't over. This wasn't over. And the worst part, I had the sick, horrible feeling that I had never left that house alone. I didn't stop driving. I didn't think. I didn't breathe. My mind was stuck on one thought. Keep going. The city blurred past me. Neon signs and high-rise buildings flickering through the windshield like ghosts. Traffic was picking up. People on their morning commutes, sipping coffee, scrolling through their phones, living their normal lives, while I sat behind the wheel of my car, heart hammering so hard I thought it might crack my ribs. My phone was still on the passenger seat. The screen lit up every few seconds. Unknown. Caller. Again. And again. And again. I didn't dare pick up. The last time I had, I'd heard its voice. No, not its voice. My voice. Come back home. The words still clawed at my brain, stretching my sanity to the breaking point. I couldn't go home. I knew that. But there was nowhere to go. My dog Benny was still in that house. But I wasn't going back. I couldn't. I had this overwhelming, suffocating feeling that if I stepped back into that place, even for a second, I wouldn't come back out. Ever. The motel. I ended up at a run-down motel on the edge of the city, the kind of place where people go to disappear. The check-in guy didn't even look at me when I slid my cash across the counter. I took the first-floor room at the end of the hall, away from the other guests. I needed to be alone. The room smelled like old cigarettes and mildew, the kind of scent that soaks into your skin, follows you even after you leave. The walls were yellowed, the carpet stiff with stains I didn't want to think about. The bed was too small. The curtains didn't close all the way. The light above the bathroom flickered just enough to put me on edge. I locked the door. Deadbolt, chain, everything. Then I shoved a chair under the handle. Still wasn't enough. I grabbed my phone with shaking hands. I needed answers. I opened my messages. Me. What the hell is happening to me? Him. It's attached to you now. I stared at the screen, my pulse slamming against my skull. Me. What does that mean? Him. You saw it. It saw you. It follows now. My mouth went dry. I left that house. I had run, but I wasn't free. It had come with me. I looked up from my phone, my gaze flicking to the cheap motel mirror across from the bed. The reflection stared back at me, off-center, like something was just barely wrong. My own eyes looked too dark, like the pupils had stretched a little too far. The shadows in the corners of the room seemed to be waiting. I turned away, pulse thudding in my ears. That's when the knocking started, software rhythmic, coming from the motel room door. Number no, no, no. I stayed perfectly still, barely breathing. Another knock, this time louder. I reached for my phone. No new messages, no notifications, no warnings from Abyss Watcher 42. I crept toward the peephole. My blood turned to ice. There was someone standing there. No, not someone. Something. I could only see part of its shoulder and arm. It was too close to the door, pressed up against it like it was listening. Its skin was grayish-purple, damp and stretched tight, like the thing I had seen in the basement. But this was different. The fingernails were missing, like something had ripped them off. Knock, knock, knock. It wasn't trying to get in. It was just waiting. I backed away from the door, my entire body shaking. I checked my phone again. Still nothing. I didn't know what to do. Then, a new message. Him. Don't open the door. I almost dropped the phone. I typed back as fast as my shaking hands allowed. Me. It's here. Him. I know. Me. How do I get rid of it? A long pause. Then, him. You don't. The air left my lungs. Knock. Knock. The sound was softer now. Almost playful. Like it knew I wasn't going to open the door. But it was having fun anyway. Then, a new sound. from inside the room. A whisper, right behind me. I turned slowly. The motel mirror. The reflection had changed. It was me, but it wasn't. The figure in the glass was smiling, and I wasn't. Then, it blinked, but I didn't. I stopped breathing. My vision swam. The reflection tilted its head, and then, in my own voice, "Come back home." I screamed. I don't remember what happened next. Everything blurred. My body moved on autopilot. The next thing I knew, I was outside, gasping for air, my feet slamming against the pavement as I ran. I didn't stop until I reached the main road, streetlights buzzing overhead. When I finally looked back, the motel door was wide open, and the chair was still under the handle, like it had never been moved, like I had never left. But I had, hadn't I? The last message. I sat on a bus stop bench, shaking so hard I could barely keep my head up. The streets were waking up, people walking past, completely unaware of the thing I had just escaped. I checked my phone. One new message from Abyss Watcher 42. I hesitated before opening it. Him. It's not done yet. Me. What do you mean? Another long pause. Then, him. It doesn't just want to follow you. Him. It wants to become you. My breath hitched. I looked at my reflection in the bus stop glass, and for a split second, my eyes weren't mine. They were too big, too round, too happy, smiling. I don't know how long I sat there, staring at my reflection in the bus stop glass, my heart slamming against my ribs like it was trying to escape my chest. The face staring back at me was mine, but it wasn't. The eyes were too big, the pupils too wide, and they were smiling. I wasn't smiling. I blinked, and for a fraction of a second, the reflection didn't. That was all it took. That tiny, impossible delay. The glass still held the afterimage of that thing wearing my face, staring at me with its stretched out, almost human eyes. I ripped my gaze away and stumbled to my feet, my breath coming in short, panicked gasps. I needed to move. I needed to go. But go where? The motel was out of the question. My house was out of the question. I was running out of places to hide. And worse, I was starting to feel like there was no point in running at all, like it had already caught me, the stranger. I didn't know what else to do, so I walked through the city, past early morning crowds and sidewalks smeared with last night's regrets, past Starbucks windows filled with sleepy commuters, past a group of tourists snapping photos in front of a deep dish pizza place like they were visiting the goddamn Eiffel Tower. Everything felt off, like the whole world was out of sync. The people walking by, they all seemed wrong, too still. Their eyes lingered a second too long. Their movements were too smooth, like someone had edited the frames of reality and looped them wrong. The paranoia was drowning me. Every time I passed a reflective surface, I refused to look, but I could feel it. That other version of me, watching, mimicking, waiting. I don't know why I ended up at that diner. Maybe I was losing it. Maybe I needed to be around people, even if my brain was screaming at me that none of them were real. It was a dingy little place, greasy tables, faded menus, the kind of spot where you could get a heart attack for $5.99. A couple of old men sat hunched over their coffees. A waitress in her 50s smacked her gum and scrolled through her phone, looking like she'd rather be anywhere else. Normal, or close enough. I took a booth in the back and kept my head down. When the waitress came over, I ordered black coffee. I didn't even want it. I just needed something to do with my hands. I kept waiting for my phone to buzz, for Abyss Watcher 42 to send me another cryptic warning, but there was nothing. No new messages, no missed calls, nothing. I was completely alone. Or maybe not, because a minute later, someone slid into the booth across from me. I looked up, and everything stopped. He was smiling. A man, late 40s, dark suit, pale skin, black-rimmed glasses. He looked normal, but his eyes, they were too wide, too dark. He placed his hands neatly on the table and leaned forward slightly, his smile never faltering. "It's getting inside, you know." My stomach plummeted. I didn't answer. I just sat there, frozen, my coffee growing cold between my hands. The man's head tilted slightly, as if examining me. "You let it see you." I swallowed hard. My voice barely worked. "What? What do you mean?" The man chuckled. A slow, too perfect sound. "They don't have faces of their own." Something tightened in my chest. The man reached into his jacket pocket. For a split second, I thought he was going for a gun, but no. He pulled out something much, much worse. A hand mirror. He placed it on the table between us, tilting it just enough for me to see my own reflection. And my heart stopped, because it wasn't me. Not exactly. The reflection looked like me, but the longer I stared, the more I saw the tiny wrong details. The eyes, too round, the mouth, twitching slightly at the edges, the expression, neutral, empty, like it was waiting for me to do something first. I clenched my fists. "What the hell is this?" The man simply smiled. "It's learning." I shoved the mirror away so hard it nearly fell off the table. The man didn't move, didn't blink, just kept watching me. I swallowed the bile rising in my throat. "How do I stop it?" His smile faded slightly. "You can't." My vision blurred. "There has to be a way." For the first time, the man's expression shifted. Something like pity. Then, in a calm, measured voice, he said, "What makes you think you're the real one?" The last hours, I ran. I left the diner so fast, I knocked over a chair. The waitress barely looked up. The old men kept sipping their coffees, like none of them had noticed, like I wasn't even there. My feet hit the pavement, my breath coming in ragged, panicked gasps. I didn't know where I was running. I just knew I had to move. The city felt different. The streets were empty. No cars, no people, no sound. Like the whole world had stopped. I pulled out my phone with numb fingers, opened my messages. I don't know what I was expecting. Maybe another warning, maybe an answer, but there was only one new message. From Abyss Watcher 42. I opened it and froze. There was no text, just a photo, a screenshot of a FaceTime call, Mr. looking directly at the camera, and I was smiling. Not the way I smile, not my expression, something else, something behind my eyes, something wearing my skin like a costume. And that's when I heard it, a voice, behind me, close, too close, whispering in my own voice, "Come back home." I turned and saw myself, the ending you didn't want. I don't remember what happened after that. Maybe I ran, maybe I didn't. Maybe I never even left that basement. All I know is that I woke up this morning in my own bed. My phone is beside me. The messages are gone. The motel doesn't exist. No record of it. No check-in logs. Nothing. The diner burned down 10 years ago. And my dog, Benny, he won't come near me. He just sits in the corner, whimpering, like he knows, like he can see it, like he knows that I'm not me anymore. I bought a dark web app that promises to simulate your death. When I launched it, my heart stopped beating. Alright, so I never really believed in all that dark web horror story stuff. You know, the ones where people find some creepy website, order a mystery box, or accidentally get themselves hacked by some underground cult. Yeah, I always figured those were just over-the-top internet myths. But then this happened. So, for context, I'm a pretty normal guy. Early 20s, living in a tiny one-bedroom apartment in Chicago. I work from home, doing graphic design, so I spend an unhealthy amount of time online. And yeah, I've gone down the deep web rabbit hole before, mostly out of curiosity, checking out weird forums, sketchy services, and once even browsing a site that claimed to sell human teeth. Don't ask, I clicked away fast. But then last week, I found something I shouldn't have. It started with a Reddit post. I was scrolling through our internet mysteries when I saw this thread titled, "Anyone else try DeadNet? Real death simulation app?" The post was vague, just a few lines. Found this app through a private dark web forum. It claims to simulate your own death in real time. I thought it was just some dumb game, but the way it works is different. If anyone else has tried it, let me know what happened to you. Most of the comments were just people calling it fake, but one stuck out. Do not download it. It doesn't just simulate death. It knows things about you. Things it shouldn't. Now, I know what you're thinking. This is obviously some horror movie bait. But for some reason, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I checked the post history of the original poster. Their account was deleted. Even weirder, every reply that claimed to have tried the app had also been wiped. Like, full-on removed from Reddit. At that point, I was hooked. I don't know why, but I needed to know what this thing was. Curiosity, boredom, stupidity. Take your pick. So I did some digging. Turns out, DeadNet wasn't on any normal dark web markets. I had to find a private forum link through an old 4chan thread, and even then, I had to request access. After about an hour, I got an email with a download link and a single warning. Once you open it, you can't stop it. That should have been enough to make me nope the hell out. But nah, I'm an idiot. I clicked the link. The file was small, just deadnet.x and a blank text file that simply said, "Time's running out." Now, at this point, I was sure this was some elaborate prank. Maybe a virus, maybe just some creepy ARG, alternate reality game, but nothing actually dangerous. So, like an absolute moron, I double-clicked the .x. For a second, nothing happened. Then, my screen glitched. Like, full-on TV static for maybe 3 seconds before a black screen appeared with a single word, initializing. A soft ticking noise started playing through my speakers. Not a normal ticking. This one was irregular, rushed, like someone desperately tapping a clock hand forward. My webcam light flashed on, then my microphone. I felt my stomach tighten. Then, in red text, "Welcome," my full name. I stopped breathing. I never entered my name. My computer didn't have my full legal name anywhere. The screen flickered again. Then another message. Last seen, February 11th, 2025, 10:48 p.m. That was right now. Chills ran down my spine. I wanted to close the window, but there was no exit button, no task manager, no response. Just that damn ticking noise getting faster. And then the final message appeared. Ready to experience your death. Click to begin. I don't know why, but my hand moved on its own. I clicked, and everything went black. The screen went black. For a moment, I thought my computer had crashed, but then I realized I couldn't hear anything. No hum of my PC fan, no traffic outside, no distant sirens, which in Chicago is rare. Just silence. Then the ticking started again. It wasn't coming from my speakers anymore. It was inside my head. I reached for my phone, but my fingers felt wrong, like they weren't fully attached to me. I looked down. My hands were there, but something was off. My veins looked darker, almost black under my skin. My fingernails were too long, like they had grown inches in seconds. Then my room changed. It happened in the blink of an eye. 1 second, I was at my desk. The next, I was somewhere else. The wall stretched outward, shifting into cracked concrete. My monitor disappeared, replaced by a flickering fluorescent light hanging from an exposed ceiling. The air smelled like rotting wood and something else, something sour and metallic. Blood. I turned around. My bedroom door was gone. In its place, a narrow rusted hallway stretched out into the darkness. The only thing in sight was a small sign, barely visible under the dim light. You have 10 minutes to live. Then I heard it. A noise from the darkness ahead. Something moving. The sound wasn't footsteps. It was softer. A dragging noise, like something being pulled across concrete. I held my breath. My body felt frozen, like my own muscles didn't belong to me anymore. Then a voice. Not a normal voice. This one was warped, like it had been recorded on a broken cassette tape. It was low, trembling, and barely more than a whisper. He's not supposed to be here yet. My blood went cold. I backed up, slamming into the wall. My heart pounded so hard, I thought it might burst. This wasn't just a game anymore. This was real. Too real. The dragging sound grew louder, closer. I had no choice. I ran. I sprinted down the hallway, the light overhead flickering wildly as the air turned thick and hot, like a basement with no ventilation. The walls were damp now, covered in something wet. My footsteps echoed, but I couldn't hear my own breathing. I wasn't even sure if I was still breathing. Then the hallway ended. A dead end. Just a single, rusted metal door. I turned back. The thing was there. It stood just within the darkness, hunched and wrong. I couldn't see its face, just the shape of its limbs, too long, bending in places that bones shouldn't bend. Its fingers twitched, like it was trying to remember how to move. Then it did something I will never forget for the rest of my life. It smiled, not in a normal way. Its mouth stretched too wide, past where cheeks should tear. Its lips curled, revealing something jagged and wet inside. Not teeth, something else. Something that looked like it had never stopped chewing. I will never forget what it said next. Not yet, but soon. Then everything glitched. The walls shook, and my vision blurred like a corrupted video file. I felt myself being dragged backward, my body twisting in ways it shouldn't. And then I was somewhere new. The house. I landed hard on a cold tile floor. My head spun. My ears rang like I'd just been hit by a flashbang. When I looked up, I almost screamed. I was in a bathroom, but not my bathroom. It looked familiar though. The pale green walls, the cracked mirror above the sink, the white door with the little brass doorknob. And then I saw the bathtub. It was filled, not with water, with something thick, black and moving, like ink mixed with static. And then I saw him. There was a man sitting in the bathtub, or at least something that used to be a man. His skin was grayish blue, like a drowned corpse, and his eyes were completely gone, just empty, hollow sockets dripping with the black liquid. His mouth was open, his lips torn, his teeth jagged and broken, like he had been biting down on something too hard. He turned his head toward me. I wanted to move. I wanted to run, but I was frozen. Then he spoke. His voice was wrong, like a recording played backward. You should have said no. I blinked, and suddenly, he was standing right in front of me. His hand grabbed my wrist. His fingers were wet, cold, and too strong. His grip felt real. Too real. And then I felt it. Something inside my chest. Like a hand reaching through my ribs. Like fingers curling around my heart. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. Then I heard the ticking again. Faster. Louder. The words started fading. And then I woke up. Back in my room. I was back. At my desk. In my apartment. My monitor was off. My hands were normal. The clock on my screen said 4:07 a.m. I gasped for air, clutching my chest. My heart was racing like I had just run a marathon. My whole body was covered in sweat. Had it been a dream? Number? It couldn't have been, because on my screen there was a new message, a single line of red text. You died at 4:06 a.m. And then my phone vibrated. I grabbed it with shaking hands. It was a text message from an unknown number. It just said, "You felt it, didn't you?" I dropped the phone. My stomach twisted. My hands were still trembling. I stood up, still feeling like something was watching me. The room felt wrong. And then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw my bathroom door was open. I never leave it open. And inside, the light was off. But the mirror was fogged, like someone had been inside. There was something written on it. I stepped closer. My breath caught in my throat. In the glass, written in dripping black letters, were 4 words. You should have died. Then my lights flickered. And from deep inside the bathroom, from the darkness beyond the mirror, I swear to God, I heard someone whisper my name. I stood there, staring at my bathroom mirror, my breath caught in my throat. The words were still there. You should have died. The condensation on the glass was fresh. The letters were still dripping, but my apartment was empty. I grabbed my phone with shaking hands, opening the camera to snap a picture. But just as I did, my screen glitched. The camera app froze, the pixels distorting into a mess of black and red static. Then, for a split second, I saw something reflected in my screen. A man, standing directly behind me. I spun around so fast I nearly fell, but there was no one there. My whole body was screaming at me to get out. Every hair on my arm stood up. The air felt wrong, like something had shifted, like I was no longer in my own apartment, but somewhere else entirely. Then my bathroom light turned off by itself. The door creaked open just a little wider, and from inside the darkness, I heard it again. A slow, wet, dragging sound. I stepped backward. My phone screen flickered. And then, a message appeared. Not on my phone, not on my computer, but on my bathroom mirror. Don't turn around. My hands went numb. I felt the blood drain from my face. My body was locked in place, every muscle frozen. I could feel it. Something was standing right behind me again. I could hear its breathing. Slow, heavy, wrong. My legs wouldn't move. My mind was screaming at me to run, but I couldn't. I could feel fingers hovering inches from my shoulder. The air was colder now. My stomach twisted. Then, in the mirror, something shifted. A handprint, right next to mine, pressed against the glass from the inside. Then another, and another. Hands crawled across the mirror, dozens of them, pressing against the surface, like something was trying to claw its way out. Some were too small, like the hands of children. Others were too long, fingers stretching too far, bending in unnatural directions. And then, in the center, a face appeared. It wasn't mine. The skin was gray and rotting. The eyes were black pits. But the mouth, it was my own mouth. Grinning, it whispered one word. Run. The lights in my apartment exploded. The first death. I don't remember moving. 1 second, I was frozen in front of the mirror. The next, I was sprinting out of my apartment, my heartbeat hammering in my ears. I nearly tripped down the stairs, barely catching myself before I hit the concrete. The street outside was empty. Too empty. No cars, no people, no sounds. Just a heavy, thick silence that made my skin crawl. Then my phone buzzed. A new message. Unknown number. You're wasting time. Then another. Unknown number. The countdown is still running. My chest tightened. I looked at the time. 4:09 a.m. Then I saw the reflection in the glass of a parked car beside me. A man, standing at the end of the street. At first, I thought he was facing away from me. But then I saw his head. It was twisted completely backward. A shudder crawled down my spine. His mouth was open, wider than humanly possible, like something had cracked his jaw apart. I could hear something clicking inside his throat. Then his arms started moving, but not like a person walking, like a marionette. I turned and ran. I don't know how long I sprinted. I don't even remember turning corners or dodging through the streets. My brain was in full survival mode. All I knew was I had to get away. But no matter how far I ran, the man was always at the end of the street, always waiting. His limbs bent in impossible directions, his body moving unnaturally, like he wasn't walking, but being dragged by something unseen. Then my phone rang. The name on the screen made my stomach drop. 911. I hesitated. Then with shaking hands, I answered. For a second, there was nothing but static. Then, through the crackling noise, I heard a distorted, robotic voice. You died at 4:06 a.m. The call cut out. My breath hitched. My hands were slick with sweat. My head pounded. My lungs burned. And then, I felt something grab my ankle. Cold fingers, wet skin, too strong. I hit the pavement hard. The impact knocked the air from my lungs. My vision blurred. But before I could move, something pulled me backward, dragged me into the darkness, the morgue. When I woke up, I was lying on cold metal. I could barely move. My arms and legs felt heavy. My skin was numb. Then I realized where I was. A morgue. The walls were pale green, lined with rows of metal drawers. A single flickering fluorescent light buzzed above me. The air was freezing. And then I saw it. The body bag. It was on the table beside me. The zipper was half open, revealing a glimpse of pale, dead flesh. Then my phone vibrated again. Another message. Unknown number. Check the tag. My stomach turned. My breathing hitched. Slowly, I forced myself to sit up, my muscles aching. I reached out, my fingers shaking, and grabbed the toe tag attached to the body bag. I turned it over. My vision blurred. It had my name on it. The date of death, February 11th, 2025. 4:06 a.m. My breath hitched. My head spun. This wasn't happening. This wasn't real. Then, the body moved. A wet sound, like something shifting inside the bag. I stumbled backward. Then the zipper started unzipping from the inside. A single hand slid out, grayish blue, rotting, fingernails broken and blackened. Then the body sat up, and I saw the face. It was me, pale, lifeless, with empty black pits for eyes. And then it smiled. Not a normal smile, a grin too wide, stretching across my entire face, splitting the skin at the corners of my mouth. Then it spoke, in my own voice. You're already dead. The lights flickered, and then everything went black. I wasn't in my apartment anymore. I wasn't even sure if I was in my own body anymore. The last thing I remembered was the dead version of me sitting up from the morgue table, grinning with that too wide mouth. black eyes locked onto mine. The next, I was somewhere else, somewhere wrong. I was lying on something soft but damp. The air was thick, humid, and reeked of something rotting. My head was spinning. My arms were numb. My skin felt cold and wet, like I had been submerged in something for too long. I tried to sit up. That's when I realized I wasn't on a bed. I was lying on a pile of bodies. My stomach lurched. I scrambled backward, my hands sinking into rotting flesh, my fingers brushing against things I didn't want to identify. The bodies were wrong. Some missing limbs, some stitched together, some breathing even though their chests were torn open. And worst of all, some of them had my face. Not just one. Dozens. Some were fresh, their skin still looking alive. Others were gray, decayed, with their lips pulled back in frozen grins, teeth shattered, black liquid oozing from their eyes. My body locked up in sheer terror. My mind was screaming. I tried to move, tried to breathe, tried to understand how any of this was possible. Then one of the bodies sat up. I froze. Its movements were slow, bones creaking, skin peeling away from the muscle underneath. It turned its head toward me, its black eyes sinking into its skull. Then it opened its mouth, and I heard my own voice. "We never wake up." Then all of them started moving. Hands reached for me, clawing, twitching, dragging themselves up from the pile. Their fingers dug into my arms. Their nails tore into my skin, but there was no blood, just a thick black sludge oozing from the wounds. I tried to scream, but the sound that came out wasn't mine. It was distorted, glitching, like a corrupted audio file. Then I heard the ticking again, not in my ears, inside my head. It was faster now, out of sync, frantic. The bodies were pulling me down, their fingers curling around my throat, their nails piercing my skin like fishhooks, dragging me deeper. And then, everything stopped. The basement. I was standing, not on the pile of bodies, not in the morgue, somewhere new. It was a basement, but not a normal one. The walls were made of concrete, covered in deep scratches, like something had been clawing to get out. The air was freezing, my breath coming out in thick, white puffs. There was a single light bulb swinging from the ceiling, casting long, twisting shadows across the damp floor. And in the middle of the room, there was a chair, a rotting wooden chair, and someone was sitting in it. My pulse slowed. Something about this moment felt wrong, rehearsed, like I had been here before, but couldn't remember. The person in the chair was tied down with thick, blackened rope. Their head was tilted to the side, their body limp. Their clothes were torn, stained with something dark and wet. Their arms were covered in deep, jagged cuts, the wounds stitched shut with crude, black thread. I stepped forward. My breath hitched. The person in the chair looked exactly like me. It was me. His head snapped up so fast, I heard the bones crack. His mouth peeled open, a choked, garbled whisper. "Wake up!" Then his entire body started convulsing. His skin split open, peeling away in long, wet strips, revealing something moving underneath. Not bones, not muscle. Something else. Something with too many teeth. Something that didn't belong inside human skin. Then the lights went out, and in the darkness, I felt something breathing against my ear. Not warm, cold. A voice, distorted and trembling like an old cassette tape. "You're still inside." Then everything exploded in static. The room that shouldn't exist. I woke up in my apartment. For the first time, I felt a wave of relief, until I realized something was wrong. I sat up slowly, my hands still shaking. The clock on my desk said 4:06 a.m. Again, my apartment looked the same, but it didn't feel the same. The air was too still. The walls seemed too stretched. The shadows in the corners were too deep. Then I noticed my bathroom door was open, and inside, the mirror was gone. In its place, there was a door that shouldn't be there. It was old, wooden, and covered in deep scratches, just like the basement walls. A rusted chain was wrapped around the handle, stretching across the floor like it had been ripped off from the other side. And then my phone buzzed. A new message. Unknown number. It's not over. Then another. Unknown number. You're still inside the simulation. My stomach twisted. My breath caught in my throat. My hands were still shaking as I typed back. What do you mean? I'm awake. The reply came instantly. Unknown number. Are you? I dropped my phone. My heartbeat slammed against my ribs. I looked at the door. Something was scratching on the other side. Slow. Deliberate. And then, the doorknob started turning. The doorknob was turning. Not fast. Slow. Deliberate. Something on the other side wanted me to know it was there. My whole body locked up. My breathing was too loud. My heart slammed against my ribs so hard it hurt. I wanted to move, to run, to do anything but stand there frozen like a rabbit staring at a wolf. But I couldn't, because something deep inside me, something primal, already knew. I was never supposed to see this door, and whatever was behind it was never supposed to leave. The chain across the floor rattled. The scratching on the wood turned into something worse, something wet, like fingernails peeling away skin. Then the whispering started. It wasn't one voice. It was many, layered, some high-pitched, giggling, some low, broken, shaking, like someone crying through cracked lips, all of them saying the same thing. You're still inside. I staggered back, my knees nearly buckling. Then my phone vibrated. I almost didn't want to look. I forced myself to glance down. A new message. Unknown number. Do not let it out. The door shuttered. The chain snapped. And then, the door opened. The thing that wore my skin. There was nothing on the other side. At first, just blackness. Not normal darkness. Not the kind your eyes adjust to. This was deeper. Endless. Then, from that void, something stepped forward, and I almost collapsed. It was me, but not. It had my face, but the skin was wrong, like something had stretched it over a frame that didn't fit. Too tight in some places, sagging in others. The eyes were off, like they had been pressed into the sockets from the outside. And the mouth. God. The mouth. It smiled. A slow, unnatural grin, stretching farther than skin should allow, revealing row after row of something that wasn't teeth, something wet, something hungry. Then it spoke, in my voice. You don't belong here anymore. I stumbled back. My legs felt like they weren't mine anymore. It stepped out of the doorway. Its limbs twitched, jerked, like it was trying to figure out how to move properly. Like it was getting used to my body. I tried to scream, but nothing came out. Then it took another step toward me, and I ran, the city that wasn't real. I didn't stop running until I hit the street, and then I froze again, because the city was wrong. It looked like my street. My apartment building was still behind me. The streetlights were still on. The McDonald's at the corner was still glowing, its 24-hour drive-through sign buzzing faintly. But there were no people, no cars, no sound. I reached into my pocket for my phone. My hands were trembling so hard I could barely hold it. I opened Google Maps. GPS signal lost. My breathing was shaky. I dialed 911. The phone rang. Once. Twice. Then Someone picked up, but they didn't say anything. At first. Then, in a cracking, distorted whisper, "You died at 4:06 a.m. I dropped the phone. The air was thick. I felt like I was choking on something I couldn't see. Then I heard footsteps. Behind me. Slow. Deliberate. I turned around. It was me. The thing that had stepped out of the door. It was walking toward me now. Each step glitching. Its limbs jerking like a marionette. Its grin was still there. Wider now. And then I realized. The storefront windows beside me. The glass reflected me. But in the reflection, I was standing still. And the thing behind me wasn't there. I wasn't looking at reality. I was looking at what was supposed to be real. And then, in the reflection, my mouth moved. But I wasn't speaking. The glass whispered, "You need to wake up." The final death. My chest tightened. I turned back to the thing wearing my skin. It was closer now. Its head tilted, and then it whispered, "There's no waking up." It lunged. I didn't have time to react. It grabbed my throat, its fingers digging in, tearing at my skin. I felt something snap. The world spun. I was falling. Then, nothing. I woke up. I was in my bed. My sheets were soaked with sweat. My heart was racing. My lungs felt like they had collapsed and restarted. I grabbed my phone. The time was 4:07 a.m. I sat up slowly. My head was spinning. My body felt wrong, like I had just been somewhere else. Then I noticed it. My bathroom mirror. There was something written on it. 4 words. "You never woke up." And then I heard my closet door creak open. A slow, deliberate sound. And from the darkness inside, I saw myself step out, grinning.